Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With only just about a week left until its biggest movie of all time releases, I think now's as good a time as any to catch up on the drama over there at Marvel comic book movies. Previously we covered their last movie, Captain Marvel, extensively, mostly going over the main actress Brie Larson and her social justice warrior and arrogant tendencies. Larson even went so far as to say she doesn't care what white men think about her and the movie, and she also had some pretty cringy interviews after she said, "Hey, I'm not allowing straight white men to speak to me," on one of her press tours. Yeah, it became a big mess to say the least, and that was mostly before her movie even came out. Later on, we covered the movie itself, going over all the social justice warrior moments and feminist stuff too, in Captain Marvel itself, and I also gave my brief hot take review on the movie as well. In short, Captain Marvel wasn't the worst movie by any means. Other actors like Samuel L. Jackson certainly helped prop it up into a decent picture, with some good action and comedy elements as well, but the main actress, Brie Larson, she really didn't bring much to the table. She was passable, sure, which made her movie kind of mediocre, but that's pretty bad when you're this far along in the MCU. This is like their 19th movie. They should have this formula down pat now. Regardless, finally, after the dust settled on Captain Marvel, things weren't quite over for the character or actress either. You see, as many of you probably know, Captain Marvel's movie is a big lead up to the upcoming Avengers Endgame movie, which of course features a big appearance by Captain Marvel herself. And much like with her own movie, Captain Marvel in Avengers has brought on its own drama and controversies as well. First, we already went over how her wearing makeup in the trailer may have triggered some of our SJW hardcore feminist fans. And well, now, presently, Captain Marvel has started to clash with Thor, as you've probably already figured out from the title of this video. Now, if you want to catch up on all that previous drama, I do have a link to my Captain Marvel playlist below, but for now, let's go ahead and move on to this new story. With Avengers Endgame on its way next week, which also has already sold out theaters across the country at a record pace, well, as with what happens when all big movies come out, the actors begin to go on press tours doing interviews all over the place to promote their picture. And as we saw before with Captain Marvel, Brie Larson isn't the best at this press tour stuff. Fortunately though, this time, Brie isn't quite the top dog anymore. She spent the better part of earlier this year and a few months last year thinking she was really hot shit, but now, this week, she's been served a nice slice of humble pie. And really, there's no better person suited for the job of calling out Brie other than Chris Hemsworth, aka Thor himself from the Avengers. Not only is the actor better, more charismatic and likable, and also better trained and a bigger draw at the box office, well, also, his character Thor is one of the few that are still stronger than Brie's Captain Marvel. But it doesn't sound like Brie got the memo on that from what we're seeing in her recent interviews about this. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and start checking out some of the footage then. Our clips come from a compilation made by SC Reviews. Here he puts together some of the worst Captain Marvel moments on the Avengers Endgame press tour, which are mostly her saying dumb stuff and being countered by her boy Thor, who's also in the room along with her. Let's go ahead and take a look.
I do all my stunts.
I did my stunts because I thought that that's what everyone did. And then
Tom Cruise over here?
No, I want to be the first me, not the next Tom Cruise. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty awkward. Man, it feels like you could cut the tension in that room with a knife, too. And I gotta say, I'm really glad to see Chris Hemsworth is not letting Larson get away with her humble bragging about the stunts here. Who cares if you did your own stunts, Brie? Your movie was mediocre and it was hardly stunt-based at all. Sure, all of these superhero movies have stunts. They have big fights and all kinds of acrobatics and everything too, but this is still not nearly the same as a Tom Cruise-like movie, which is why Hemsworth brought it up here. When Cruise does his own stunts, it's in a more realistic and grounded environment, like what he does in the Mission Impossible movies, where he plays a secret agent in the real world. And of course, Mission Impossible movies are universally acclaimed as well. They kick ass. And these kinds of movies can require little special effects, all things considered, especially if that's the director's vision. So, with that said, Cruise doing his own stunts will heighten that kind of realism, and it becomes really impressive. And you could also say in Cruise's case that him being over 50 and still doing his own stunts, well, that adds another layer of awesomeness if you ask me. God, I love Tom Cruise. Cool dude. Next, let's talk about Brie Larson doing her own stunts again, because really, in her situation, it's almost completely unnecessary. As opposed to being in a Mission Impossible-like realistic and grounded spy thriller, Captain Marvel is in a science fiction action-adventure fantasy. So instead of having long one-take shots done with little to no computer graphics, Captain Marvel, on the other hand, is all special effects. And the character is even glowing, shooting fire out of its hands, and she even flies around and shit. So, needless to say, with that kind of style of film, most of it's going to be animated with with computers anyway, so Brie Larson doing her own stunts really doesn't help the picture as much as she leads on. In fact, in this kind of situation, she could have actually slowed down the production and added unneeded costs to their work schedule and insurance policies. Think about it. When other actors use stunt doubles, they can split their time and film other scenes while their doubles perform stunts at different filming locations. Lead actors also have busier schedules, so making it so you have to be on set every day for every shot for your character can actually interrupt or extend the shoot schedule overall. And about the insurance again, well, lead actors are not only more costly to insure because of their names and value, but also since they are less experienced at stunts and not as good at it as professional stunt doubles who do that stuff all day every day, well, this means the insurance companies will charge extra for that too. Make no mistake. And this is why there's also been stories and rumors about Tom Cruise and his insurance costs to films he's in. I even heard he had to insure himself at one point because he had some previous injuries and endangerment issues. But in his case, again, it can really be worth it since the added realism adds a lot to the kinds of movies he makes. But with Brie Larson and Captain Marvel, the only thing her doing her own stunts adds is expenses and pressures to the film's production. Oh, and it also allows Brie the opportunity to brag about her doing her own stunts in interviews like this, what we're watching today. So yeah, doing her own stunts is really all about her and her ego, and adds nothing good to the film's final product. So kudos to Chris Hemsworth for calling this out, and I hope I was able to clarify things better so you can see how ridiculous this all is.
Do you ever ask them, like, who's your favorite superhero? Is it me, or is it like...
That's just asking to be hurt.
It's Wonder Woman.
That's just asking
it's
for
Wonder
pain.
Woman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they haven't seen your film yet, so maybe yours. But both my boys
they got good taste
have
in
Wonder
Wonder
Woman
Woman.
costumes.
So
I was
good.
like, what about Thor? They're like, so they wear the Wonder Woman costume, or one of them in particular, with the hammer.
So like, this is for you, Dad.
Here you go, Dad.
Wow, you gotta love the low-key shade Hemsworth is throwing at Brie Larson here. Not only did he brag about his kids loving Wonder Woman more, Wonder Woman being Captain Marvel's big competition from the other DC comic book movies, but also, Chris even goes so far as to say his kids didn't even see Captain Marvel yet at all. That really says a lot too, if you ask me. First of all, it shows how much more recognizable and significant a character like Wonder Woman is. She's the first big, noteworthy female hero for sure, and certainly the biggest draw among comic book heroines. And when compared to Captain Marvel, on the other hand, well, it's really no comparison at all. No one's really heard of Captain Marvel ever, especially not before her movie came out about a month ago. Before that, only the most hardcore and nerdy comic book fans would have even heard of her. And that's talking about all the different older incarnations of Captain Marvel over the years. But as far as the Brie Larson, Carol Danvers version of Captain Marvel, well, that was only created a few years ago, around 2012 from what I gather. So yeah, Hemsworth makes a good point here too, without having to go as in depth into it as I just did, but it was fun to talk about. And it gets even worse for Captain Marvel when you think about it more, because you would think Chris's kids would be the biggest hardcore Marvel fans, right? Ones who would probably see all of the Marvel movies. I mean, shit, their dad Thor is in half of the movies at this point, but no, they still didn't care to see Captain Marvel because they're white males, and as Brie Larson has said before, this movie's not made for them. Also, Chris's boys are twins that are only 5 years old, so I'm probably admittedly looking way too far into this.
Chris Hemsworth and Wonder Woman star Gal Gadot.
Now, this doesn't say much, but it is worth noting that Chris Hemsworth seems to be much more cozy with a classy, sexy, and drama-free actress like Gal Gadot, as opposed to the frumpy, arrogant, and uncomfortable Brie Larson.
Is there any competition between the different sects, the different groups? Is there
There's
any
no competition for me because I'm the strongest, so it's just kind of like a different...
Oh, yeah, you should let her think that, but yeah.
It's not. As
You
I've
are.
said before, it's not. It's just a fact. It's not a personal opinion.
Nice. I love how Thor is not letting her get away with this. And you can really tell all this public relations, pro-feminist, Captain Marvel is the best hype is really getting to Brie's head. I will give her credit though. They did make her character really strong. One of the strongest perhaps, but she's not necessarily at the tippy top either, to use one of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's favorite terms, tippy top. You see, Brie is sitting right next to Thor, and he's the god of thunder for crying out loud, who's been alive and warring across the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Captain Marvel, on the other hand, is a human who was exposed to an accident and then filled with Kree blood, which did make her into a pretty powerful superhuman, but she's still a human at her core. And sure, determining which of the two characters is the strongest is perhaps splitting hairs here, but that's a much more fair assessment than what Brie Larson is saying, pretending she's the strongest of all point blank. No discussion. Did she you even consider someone like Thanos, the villain from the Avengers Infinity War? He's a god himself in his own right, and also he has all the Infinity Stones currently. That's pretty hard to beat once he puts them in his gauntlet. Perhaps Captain Marvel could be the one to take Thanos on, but there's no way she could do it all by herself. Or what about another character like the Hulk? Sure, his alter ego Bruce Banner appears to be a non-assuming scientist, but he's still bulletproof and pretty much indestructible. And according to his backstory, Hulk just gets bigger and stronger the more you beat him up, and he will never die or be defeated in traditional ways. So even though Captain Marvel has her own cosmic powers, they still would just make Hulk madder, bigger, stronger, and angrier, which could lead to him ripping her in half, theoretically. Regardless, I think you get the point. Like what Chris Hemsworth said, they let her think she's the strongest when really she's not, especially when you consider all the other factors here.
It's not a reflection on what you can't do, but it is also kind of a reflection on all that you can't do.
It's just that you're just not that strong. She's really smart, and but should we have a fight?
And she can eat bacon.
I feel like we're fighting right now. I think it's been an all-day thing.
Jesus Christ, this is so cringe. She can't even be humbled and take a burn and move on. Brie really makes things worse and worse the more she says, especially when she talks about them having been fighting all day. This probably means she's been arrogant and insufferable all day, and that's why Hemsworth is finally snapping and calling her out now. Lastly, we got one more clip from another interview before we go, where you can really see how awkward and off-putting Brie Larson is according to these other guys in the interview. Take a look.
Intimidating at first, mostly because this is where it all began for me, was on this film. We filmed this before Captain Marvel, but it was a good group of people to figure it out with, right guys?
Yeah.
Isn't it fun being there for all my extra takes?
Trained you up from the apprenticeship.
Damn, Don Cheadle on the right even pulls away from Brie when she's looking to him and Chris for encouragement. I think he even said something like, "I told you about the touching." Ouch. Shot down, Brie. Looks like your lukewarm, off-putting attitude is really catching up to you, and it's especially bad when you're getting shade coming from Chris Hemsworth and Don Cheadle, two very likable, highly respected, and excellent actors who, from what I've heard, they appear to get along with everyone, but not with Brie Larson, I guess, because she's really been blowing it. In the end, Chris Hemsworth really is doing God's work by calling out Brie Larson here. She's been pushed and promoted and given break after break for so long, it really hurts, so seeing someone try and push back on her so publicly really is satisfying, especially Chris Hemsworth. I mean, he's an OG Avenger and MCU star. With that in mind, I can see why he would not like seeing Brie come in and try and take over the place, acting like she owns it. She made one movie so far, let's not forget, and sure it did pretty well financially, but she does have all the other Avengers and their movies to thank for Captain Marvel's success. She didn't do it on her own. And Thor, played by Chris Hemsworth, this guy on the other hand, his franchise started from almost nothing about 10 years ago when this whole Marvel Cinematic Universe began. And now Thor has gone on to grow on people and become one of my favorites overall over the years. And now, especially after calling out Captain Marvel, hey Chris Hemsworth, I gotta say, you're my boy, dude. What do you guys think? Was Chris Hemsworth calling out Brie Larson the best? Do you think all of her feminist girl power stuff has gone to her head? And does this make you guys even more excited for Avengers Endgame coming out next week? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.